Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. Good morning. Good morning. I love your muffled little voices. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Amherst. I'm Reverend Michelle Buheit. I'm the minister of this congregation. My pronouns, which I offer to create a truly inclusive and brave space for all to live into the fullness of their identities, are she and her. We are so glad to have you in this service, whether that is in our building or live streaming online or catching it later on YouTube. Together, we create a multi-generational, beloved worshiping community. Just a reminder that while you are in the building, please keep your masks on unless you would like to give me the morning off, and then you can come up and preach. That's always our deal. Today is the last day that we are accepting donations to support the work of Hearts and Hands Faith in Action, a neighbor helping neighbor ministry. You will find information and envelopes at the back of the chapel to designate your giving to Hearts and Hands.
Good morning. I'm Angela Warren, your Director of Faith Development here at UU Amherst. My pronouns are she and her. As we gather, we acknowledge that our church is built on occupied land that once belonged to the First Nations people of this region, the Haudenosaunee. May we be good stewards of the land and courageously cultivate community with all living things. We begin our time together by lighting the chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. We offer these words from Deborah Falk. A chalice lit in our midst is a symbol of our liberal faith, a faith built on the foundations of freedom, reason, and welcome, a faith sustained by acts of kindness and justice, a faith that envisions a world flourishing with equality for all people, a faith that demands the living out of goodness, a faith that requires thoughtfulness, a faith of wholeness. This tiny flame is the symbol of the spark of all this within each of us. It's been said that Unitarian Universalism is the religion that puts its faith in you, trusting each individual to engage in the spiritual journey and to reach our own conclusions about spiritual matters. We do that in beloved community as we support one another in faith and in friendship. And in that spirit, this congregation has created a covenant, a sacred promise of how we will strive to be with one another. Please join me in speaking our covenant. Together, we promise to gather in compassionate community, to celebrate diversity of thought and unity of spirit, and to seek wholeness for ourselves, our children, and our world.
So, making time for death. Wow, Michelle. What a cheery topic. I suppose it's timely, being Halloween and all. It is my hope that although the topic may at first sound grim, that you will be uplifted and inspired by sharing this time together. Today's service will not be about the wills, health proxies, and other legal documents that you should have in place to make things easier for those who will care for you and whom you will leave behind. It's not about making choices about burial or cremation, and not only making those choices clearly known, but taking care of those choices with prepayment if you have the resources. Although I can tell you from my own experience that your family and friends will be grateful not to have to make those decisions in the midst of their grief. Making time for death is an opportunity for each of us to confront our own mortality and to let that inform our living. Forrest Church, the most prolific Unitarian Universalist theologian of the 20th century, often said that the religious impulse springs from humanity's unique awareness of being alive and knowing we will die. It is the gift of consciousness that makes it possible for us to avoid the despair of Shakespeare's Macbeth. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in its petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time, and all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Is that not the picture of despair? Caitlin Dowdy, author of, listen carefully to the title, Smoke Gets in Your Eyes and Other Lessons from the Crematory. I bought the book. I haven't read the whole thing yet. But I happened to randomly flip to this when I was going through the book this week. And it's the perfect quotation, so I will share it with you with absolutely no context because, that's sometimes what we do. It is never too early to start thinking about your own death and the deaths of those you love. I don't mean thinking about death in obsessive loops, but rational interaction that ends with you realizing that you will survive the worst, whatever the worst may be. Accepting death doesn't mean that you won't be devastated when someone you love dies. It means you will be able to focus on your grief, unburdened by bigger existential questions like, why do people die? And why is this happening to me? Death isn't happening to you. Death is happening to us all. A culture that denies death is a barrier to achieving a good death. And I would add, a barrier to fully living during your life. This is all very personal for me. As the first anniversary of my mother's death was in August, and my father's is tomorrow. Over the last week, as I creatively procrastinated beginning to write this service, I found myself edgy and emotional. As I wasted time scrolling through the infinite number of distractions on the internet, it occurred to me that although my brain had not acknowledged the closing of that first year, my body knew. I wonder if that happens to you as well, where the body knows and expresses its discomfort long before the logic center in the brain gets the memo. At any rate, this is a timely reminder and reflection for me in more than a seasonal sense. Although human animals have the unique consciousness of our own living and eventual death, our society discourages us from thinking about it, making it taboo, something we don't discuss in polite company. People who are mindful of their own dying are likely to be more mindful about their living, consuming less. And capitalism does not want you to be that mindful. When faced with our own mortality, we recognize that the stuff that fills our homes is just that, stuff. We can't take it with us. We came into this world with nothing, and we will leave it the same way. I recently read an article about the Swedish art of death cleaning, mindfully reducing the clutter in our lives and in our homes, easing the way for those we will leave behind. I just ordered the book on Audible. I'll let you know what I think about it after I've had a chance to listen. I love the idea of it. Gazing at the various mementos I've accumulated, knowing that most of it will be of little interest to my daughter, I think about strangers pawing through it all, trying to knock down the price. To them, it's just stuff. So I'm taking baby steps by giving away some things as meaningful gifts, letting someone else cherish the bond of friendship that it symbolizes, and perhaps passing it on to someone else when they are ready. Of course, death cleaning is so much more than emptying closets and drawers of accumulated stuff. It's an opportunity to consider our living and our legacy. How will we be remembered? Whose lives are we enriching through our generosity and our justice work? Will we be remembered as that cranky person who always had to have their own way? Or by our willingness to listen someone else into wholeness? So let's bring it into the now. Are we living the life we would have wanted? Is there anything we can do about it if we're not? It makes me think of Ebenezer Scrooge and the adventure-filled night that led to his redemption. Being confronted by the consequences of his life inspired him to change it, to allow himself to be transformed. No surprise that Charles Dickens was a Unitarian and understood that we are redeemed as we learn to live in love and service. It is my hope that this service will bring you peace and comfort, as well as challenge you to live in such a way that you don't die before your death. Another Unitarian, Henry David Thoreau, wrote, "I wish to learn what life has to teach, and not, when I come to die, discover that I have not lived." And so we begin in a quiet way, resting in the knowledge that we are held in a love that will not let us go. Nada te turbe, nada te espante, quien a Dios tiene, nada le falta, nada te turbe, nada te espante, solo Dios basta. Nada te turbe, nada te espante, quien a Dios tiene, nada le falta, nada le turbe, nada te espante, solo Dios basta. Nada te turbe,
Nothing can trouble,
nada te
nothing can
espante,
frighten.
quien a
Those that
Dios
seek God shall never go wanting. Nothing can trouble, nothing can frighten. God alone fills us.
Nada te turbe, nada te espante, quien a Dios tiene, nada despande, solo Dios basta. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves and immortality. We slowly drove, he knew no haste, and I had put away my labor and my leisure too for his civility. We passed the school where children strove at recess in the ring. We passed the fields of grazing grain. We passed the setting sun. Or rather, he passed us. The dews do quivering and chill, for only gossamer my gown, my tippet, only tulle. We paused before a house that seemed a swelling of the ground. The roof was scarcely visible, the cornice in the ground. Since then, 'tis centuries, and yet feels shorter than the day. I first surmised the horses' heads were toward eternity. Perhaps you recognize that well-known poem by Emily Dickinson, at least the first stanza. Our lives are filled with mystery, with the ultimate mystery being what happens at the moment of our final death. Is that a strange phrase? Final death? Yet we die so many times over the course of our lives, letting go of people, animal companions, even parts of ourselves. We experience the death of hope, the death of relationships, the death of dreams, yet our essential selves live on. I think at some level we know that. Perhaps that is why the notion of one day being completely gone, no rebirth, is so difficult for us to imagine. I've heard it said that the consciousness that enables us to know that we will one day die is the same consciousness that cannot imagine itself no longer existing. And so, with our infinite human ingenuity, we create an afterlife. It's fine if you believe in an afterlife. I'm not here to take that away from you. I'm also not here to tell you that one idea of the afterlife is better than another. We'll know when we get there, right? Whether it's the karmic wheel of rebirth, the paradise of heaven, the ultimate emptiness of nirvana, or the continued relationship between the living and the dead that is represented in the Mexican Dia de los Muertos, or the Indonesian practice of keeping their beloved dead in the home for years. Humans find it supremely difficult imagining an ultimate ending and severing of relationships. Even believing that at death we become the human equivalent of nurse logs in the forest, fostering life in the shell of what we once were, is still a kind of afterlife. We believe that immortality is possible. The evidence is in every piece of music ever written, every book, poem, or story, every photograph cherished for generations, and in each child named for departed friends or ancestors. Our actions outlive us. That is our immortality. Our legacy, the good or evil we manifest in the world, lives on beyond the span of our years. Being curious about or longing for an afterlife is a very human response to the knowledge that we will one day die. Where my tolerance is rather pushed to the limit is when the notion of an afterlife becomes a tool to control people. I remember as a young person lying in bed and weeping for my friends and family who would be consigned to an afterlife of torment, because they did not share the narrow form of Christianity in which I was raised. Threats of hellfire and brimstone have coerced generations to adopt forms of religion that are oppressive and exclusive. As Unitarian religious educator Sophia Lyon-Faz wrote in her beloved poem, "It Matters What We Believe," some beliefs are like walled gardens. They encourage exclusiveness and the feeling of being especially privileged. Other beliefs are expansive and lead the way into wider and deeper sympathies. Some beliefs are like shadows, clouding children's days with fears of unknown calamities. Other beliefs are like sunshine, blessing children with the warmth of happiness. Some beliefs are divisive, separating the saved from the unsaved, friends from enemies. Other beliefs are bonds in a world community where sincere differences beautify the pattern. Some beliefs are like blinders, shutting off the power to choose one's own direction. Other beliefs are like gateways, opening wide vistas for exploration. Some beliefs weaken a person's selfhood. They blight the growth of resourcefulness. Other beliefs nurture self-confidence and enrich the feeling of personal worth. Some beliefs are rigid, like the body of death, impotent in a changing world. Other beliefs are pliable, like the young sapling, ever growing with the upward thrust of life.
Shall we gather at the river where bright angel feet have trod, with its crystal tide forever flowing by the throne of God? Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. On the margin of the river, washing up its silver spray, we will walk and worship ever all the happy golden day. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Ere we reach the shining river, lay we every burden down. Grace our spirits will deliver and provide a robe and a crown. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Soon we'll reach the shining river, soon our pilgrimage will cease, soon our happy hearts will quiver with the melody of peace. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God, that flows by the throne of God.
Our time for all ages today is a story called The Next Place by Warren Hansen. The next place that I go will be as peaceful and familiar as a sleepy summer Sunday and a sweet, untroubled mind, and yet it won't be anything like any place I've ever been, or seen, or even dreamed of in the place I leave behind. I won't know where I'm going, and I won't know where I've been as I tumble through the always and look back toward the when. I'll glide beyond the rainbows. I'll drift above the sky. I'll fly into the wonder without ever wondering why. I won't remember getting there. Somehow, I'll just arrive. But I'll know that I belong there and will feel much more alive than I have ever felt before. I will be absolutely free of the things that I held onto that were holding onto me. The next place that I go will be so quiet and so still that the whispered song of sweet belonging will rise up to fill the listening sky with joyful silence, and with unheard harmonies of music made by no one playing, like a hush upon a breeze. There will be no room for darkness in that place of living light, where an ever-dawning morning pushes back the dying night. The very air will fill with brilliance as the brightly shining sun and the moon and 500,000 stars are married into one. The next place that I go won't really be a place at all. There won't be any seasons, winter, summer, spring, or fall, nor a Monday, nor a Friday, nor December, nor July, and the seconds will be standing still while hours hurry by. I will not be a boy or girl, a woman or a man. I'll simply be just, simply me, no worse or better than. My skin will not be light or dark. I won't be fat or tall. The body I once lived in won't be part of me at all. I will finally be perfect. I will be without a flaw. I will never make one more mistake or break the smallest law. And the me that was impatient or was angry or unkind will simply be a memory, the me I left behind. I will travel empty-handed. There is not a single thing I've collected in my life that I would ever want to bring, except the love of those who loved me and the warmth of those who cared, the happiness and memories and magic that we shared. Though I will know the joy of solitude, I'll never be alone. I'll be embraced by all the family and friends I've ever known. Although I might not see their faces, all our hearts will beat as one, and the circle of our spirits will shine brighter than the sun. I will cherish all the friendship I was fortunate to find, all the love and all the laughter in the place I leave behind. All those good things will go with me. They will make my spirit glow, and that light will shine forever in the next place that I go.
The American spiritual teacher Ram Dass has described our lives as simply walking each other home. I love the understanding and compassion in that statement. Whether we are walking each other home to the wholeness of ourselves or to the end of our lives, what matters is that we are not alone. There is a love that holds us, and we extend that love to one another. I invite you into a time of quiet reflection to listen for that still small voice, however you name that. After a few moments of silence, I will offer a prayer, and then I'll invite you to come forward if you wish to place a stone or shell on the labyrinth. Let us enter the silence. Spirit of community, of life and love, in which we share and find strength and common purpose, we turn our minds and hearts toward one another, seeking to bring into our circle of concern all who need our love and support. Those who are ill, those who are in pain either in body or in spirit, those who are lonely or grieving, those who have been wronged. Holding in your heart the names of those needing love and support, I invite you to come forward and place a stone or shell on the labyrinth in honor of joys, concerns, and sorrows that you carry today. We are part of a web of life that makes us one with all humanity, one with all the universe. We are grateful for the miracle of consciousness that we share, the consciousness that gives us the power to remember, to love, and to care. Amen, Ashe, blessed be. A human life has seasons, much as the earth has seasons, each time with its own particular beauty and power and gift. By focusing on springtime and summer, we have turned the natural process of life into a process of loss rather than a celebration and appreciation. Life is neither linear nor stagnant. It is movement from mystery to mystery. Just as a year includes autumn and winter, life includes death, not as an opposite, but as an integral part of the way life is made. Rachel Naomi Remen. Death is an integral part of life, and making friends with death can give our lives meaning. But I have to tell you, that can be pretty cold comfort when you are facing the end of your own life or grieving the loss of a loved one. Journeying with death as a friend throughout our lives and learning to talk about death and grief can absolutely transform our living. We're going to close our worship today with a ritual, making space for grief and renewal. This meditation of candles is adapted from Edward Searle's book, In Memoriam. There is a mysterious power that animates every living thing, a mysterious power that sustains what we call life. We do not know where we come from when we are born. We do not know where we go when we die. But we do know the life we live between the two eternities of being born and having to die. Between these two eternities is our world, our life. Some of us call the source of life, this mysterious power, God. Some of us prefer another name, eternal being, or creative force, or spirit of life, or perhaps simply love. Some of us do not know what to call this mysterious power, for all names seem somehow inadequate. Yet we feel this mysterious power at the center of our unique beings. We experience it through the changes of our individual lives. We see and sense it at work in the life and in the changes of every living thing. Like a flame passing from candle to candle, this mysterious power passes from being to being and from generation to generation. This mysterious power is the unity of the whole creation, past, present, and future. There is a mysterious power that animates every living thing, a mysterious power that sustains life through the unending cycle of the generations. It is in honor of that mysterious power that Angela has lit a central candle. From this candle, we light a candle in memory of our beloved dead. Let this flame symbolize all human life as well as life itself. You'll notice the flame that Angela holds is a fragile flame, like the flame of our own lives. It can be extinguished by the vagaries of a gust of air, one of the guises of fate. But even if fate does not end a life unexpectedly, the burning flame will eventually consume the candle. A candle has its allotted span to burn. So a human life has its allotted span, an allotted span of years to live. And yet while it burns, for a short span or a long span of time, it radiates light and heat. And flame kindles flame. Life begets life. The glow and heat, the passion of life as passed on, So long after the candle is extinguished or consumed, the fire of life and love still burns. A human life also continues in the lives it has both engendered and influenced. Stare at the flame, then look away or even shut your eyes. As the eye remembers the light, so the mind remembers a person who has died. Though the flame of our beloved dead may be extinguished, our memory's eye still sees a person, and our mind remembers the power of their personality, how they walked through their time and world, how their life touched us and shaped our lives. And so the candle that Angela has lit is in remembrance and in honor of our beloved dead. We light a candle of community to signify the community we create. It is good to be together. We need one another in our times of joy, in our times of grief, and in love. The deep loss of death and the accompanying emotion of grief are best comforted by being together. Friendly faces, warm embraces, halting words, or no words at all convey our shared empathy. In community, we also seek a meaning in which all things are comprehended. Death has a strange way of sorting out the essentials of life and living, and we see clearly, even if through tears, what really matters. We light a candle of grief. We light this candle to acknowledge those who are grieving. We cannot pretend to make amends for your loss. But we can give you the continuing promise that we shall walk quietly beside you, hearing your words, seeking to understand the depth of your loss and the pain of your grief, and giving you encouragement and support to continue living. We pray that you receive the healing gifts of courage, wisdom, and thanksgiving. Courage to accept the reality of your beloved's death, wisdom that life and joy, death and sorrow are joined, and thanksgiving to celebrate the life of those you have lost. We light a candle of joy. We light this candle to signify that our sorrow and joy are one. We cannot deny the grief that death brings. We must let it spill from our hearts. We must let our sorrow have its time, because our joy has had its time. A wise man, James Martineau, wrote, "We have a human right to our sorrow. To blame the deep grief which bereavement awakens is to consume all strong human attachment. The more intense the delight in their presence, the more poignant the impression of their absence. And you cannot destroy the anguish unless you forbid the joy. A morality which rebukes sorrow rebukes love." William Blake declared, "Joy and woe are woven fine. It is right, it should be so. We were made for joy and woe." We light a candle for the mystery of life and death. William Shakespeare wrote, "We are such stuff as dreams are made of, and our life is rounded with a sleep." In awe and wonder, our thoughts leap from understanding to understanding about a human life and the double mystery of where we come from when we are born and where we go when we die. We light a candle of thanksgiving. We are thankful for the gift of life, even though our individual lives are rounded by sleep. We are thankful that time lessens and memories heal the grief we feel at death, bringing ever deeper understandings and a more loving acceptance of those who have died. We are thankful for the comfort we give one another. We are thankful that life continues, passing from generation to generation. We are thankful that love never dies. It is true that love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. And so we light a final candle for love. The love we have for life and its mysterious but sure source, which many of us name God. The love our beloved dead had for us, and the love that has brought us together. Do you think you can extinguish that center candle without blowing out any of the others? Very nice. So we extinguish that candle that represents our beloved dead, that candle that may have a personality attached to it. But as we do, we see that the candles of life still burn, as do the candles of community, thanksgiving, and love. Join your hearts with mine in the spirit of prayer. Spirit of life, be with us, giving us the peace of acceptance and understanding and the assurance in those things that never die, those things that pass from person to person through the generations into eternity, especially love. In the spirit of love we have gathered. In the spirit of love we will depart.
All this joy, all this sorrow, all this promise, all this pain, such is life, such is being, such is spirit, such is love. City of joy, city of sorrow, city of promise, city of pain. Such is life.
Thank you for joining us in worship today. I hope you have been inspired and uplifted by sharing this time together. A reminder that you can support the work and mission of this congregation with your financial gifts. There is a basket out back. And also, if you want to contribute to Hearts and Hands. Let us affirm together. I should have changed the color of that. Let's do it from memory. All right, do what you can. We pick fruit from trees we did not plant. We drink water from wells we did not dig. This is as it should be, so long as we dig and plant for those who will come after us. And we extinguish our chalice with these familiar words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Adam's going to play Travel Light, and then I'll invite you to sing with me. Travel light and travel easy till I see you once again. Travel light and travel easy, and remember I'm your friend. A benediction is a blessing, a way to close the sacred space we have shared and to transition back to our regular lives, knowing that we are deeply connected even when apart. These parting words come from Robert Mabry Doss. For all who see God, may God go with you. For all who embrace life, may life return your affection. For all who seek a right path, may a way be found and the courage to take it step by step.